Chicago is an attractive metropolis. This is a huge amount. The sheer size of the place ensures that no two people ever cross paths. In the midst of my most recent endeavor, I occasionally lament that fact. In reality, it's more of an inquiry than a project. A look into a strange occurrence in the public library. Excuse me as I elaborate. My instructors gave me a strange assignment around 8 months ago, in the middle of November. My professors have asked that I begin gathering information for a paper that is due at the start of the upcoming autumn semester. DePaul University is where I am pursuing a doctorate degree in contemporary American anthropology. My assignment was to create a profile of the most typical American based on several factors such as demographics, culture, knowledge, language, etc. The project was peculiar. Yes, I am capable of doing it. If I wanted to conduct a survey among students majoring in the humanities, I could use the library's resources as well as the internet, and I already had a list of people who had offered to be interviewed. For weeks, I avoided touching that project. Allow me to narrate the beginning. By the middle of November, the school library had exhausted its resources and provided no further information. Because of its greater size and age, I chose to transfer all of my academic pursuits to the public library. I started the long journey to the train station to go to the other side of town. After gathering my laptop and making a note of the titles of all the major reference books I utilized, the library was invaded by the shrieks and laughter of an elementary school class that came to visit. As soon as I entered the main lobby at around 10 in the morning, amid a sea of children wearing wildly patterned t-shirts, I mustered up the courage to muster a grin and made my way to the main staircase. I ascended the stairs to a level about 3 before descending them again and making my way to the computer to retrieve the book lists that would form the basis of my paper. Second level, West Wing. Excellent. I thought to myself, I still have 6 levels to go before I can start. When this is over, I will be in fantastic shape. I proceeded to climb indefinitely. At last I got where I needed to go, retrieved 4 or 5 books, turned on my computer, and got to work. About 3:30 in the afternoon, I finished up. Prior to feeling hungry, standing up straight, I raised my arms in the air, slid my spectacles up my nose, and reclined back in my chair. It wasn't until then that I noticed there was someone else on the quiet library floor with me. Nearby the other workstations and bookcases sat a young woman, perhaps 18 or 19 years old, who seemed to be perusing the literature. Either she was exceedingly silent, or I was trying really hard not to hear another person enter the room. Either way, I recall thinking that to myself, or perhaps a combination of the two. At the time, I didn't give it a second thought and started to gather my belongings. I saw the girl go over to a table and settle down with a strange-looking book. As I was gathering my belongings, I couldn't tell exactly where she found it. Although I thought it might have been on a shelf, it resembled a plain notebook rather than a professionally printed and bound book, on thin paperback with ruled pages, as one would find at Staples or Office Depot. With rapt attention, she read it. It was difficult to make out the text on the front cover of the book. Due to the black writing on the dark blue paper, I chose not to interrupt and persisted with my packing while she perused the pages, her eyes tearing through the words. Just as I was about to drape my laptop bag over my shoulder, the girl let go of the book, and its delicate pages fluttered to the floor. She stared at the other wall with glazed-over wonder to find out where she was pointing. I scanned the room, but all I could make out were bookshelves. Her abrupt state of utter bewilderment was clearly the result of anything she had read. As I could tell right away, her expressionless eyes spoke it all. They remained motionless and attentive. Raising from her seat, she softly made her way across the room to the stairs leading down to the main hall. Carefully and curiously, I trailed along. The little notebook was still on the floor when I glanced back over my shoulder. Hunger gripped me. Following the girl down the stairs was easier than helping to protect the library's possessions because of the weight of the bag. Her expression was one of total indifference. She remained silent as she descended the 9 stories of stairs. She moved slowly and quietly, her gaze divided between the steps and whatever it was that the book had taught her. She left through the lobby's main entrance. Just a few steps behind her, I was still trailing behind. Into the street she strode, pushing open the door. Following suit, I left the door ajar because I was determined to still go to lunch without enduring any controversy. The girl continued to walk straight forward, without veering to the left or right, stepping between the parked cars' bumpers. She proceeded on her way, into the midst of the traffic. Seeing her step out into the street made me freak out. It was too late as I sprinted after her to try to catch her shoulder. Before she stumbled into the busy street, she was hit head-on by a huge pickup truck that was honking its horn. Slamming on the brakes wasn't enough. Even if the driver did his best, her head jolted to the left, next to the right, and suddenly her skull slammed against the street. All over, there was blood. At long last, the vehicle came to a grinding stop. The vehicle skidded to the point where the girl's lifeless corpse was now lying barely beneath the vehicle. Incredulous, the driver remained motionless in the cockpit, hands white with fear as he clutches the steering wheel, his eyes fixated on the pool of blood splattered across the windshield. I hurried over to the girl, attempting to rescue her so I could check on her vitals. I reached out and took her hand. I felt her arm break as I tugged, but it was too late. A dislocation had occurred in her upper arm and forearm, and her elbow was fractured. I stooped down and peered beneath the vehicle. Her brain had been utterly destroyed. She seemed to be staring blankly into space with her eyes glazed over. It seemed peculiar. For a split second, I believed she was still alive. The thought that the accident hadn't hurt her briefly entered my head. Even though her skull was embedded in the asphalt and blood was spattered all around, her expression remained unchanged. She still wore the expression of utter bewilderment that had washed over her on the 9th floor. From this point on, it could never be erased. For a split second, I beheld her face. The sirens roused me, and I rose to my feet. The scene of the accident was cordoned off by the arrival of the police. Everything that I have told you. I also told them, despite taking notes, they showed no enthusiasm for the text. My body was trembling, very trembling, had lost all appetite. I chose to simply return home. After a long day, the library shut down. Being asleep that night was a real challenge. All I wanted to do was locate that book on the upper floor. Why? I have no idea. The contents of that book were the only thing that could not leave my head. She was slain by that book. I couldn't make up my mind whether it was on the 9th story or down on the street. Whatever it was, I was certain that the book had saved a life that day because of what I had seen. As much as I wanted to know what was in the book, I was also terrified by it. Should I read it if I did go to the 9th floor? Would it even be there? Did the cops seize it? Had the girl's hands still fallen to the floor? I was ignorant of these things. For days, the library remained closed. This book has eluded me for more than 7 days. I have thoroughly searched every shelf on the 9th, 8th, and 7th floors. There is no such book. I have inquired. With the libraries, very few people have laid eyes on it. Every single cleaner was asked. Few had come across a book of its kind, to the point that a police officer wanted to question me. I even asked. Nobody had come up with that book. He claimed an accident had been determined, and the matter had been closed because the motorist had so little time to halt. He was found not guilty. I doubt I would have been able to do much anyhow. I can't stop telling myself that I need to keep digging into this topic. I am finding the search for this book to be absurd. It serves no purpose. Even if I manage to track down the book, the likelihood that it was the catalyst for her demise is minimal. She was obviously mentally unstable. It might have been a complete coincidence. Perhaps her intense concentration was diverted to something else entirely, causing her to step into oncoming traffic. Or perhaps the memory I don't know was so devastating that she felt she had no choice but to end it. For crying out loud, the book, that probably wasn't the cause of her death. Am I correct? However, there were a few details that failed to make sense. Who else would have dealt with the book if the librarians, janitors, and cops hadn't? Following our descent, the girl and I were the only ones who had time to ascend the stairs. Even if someone managed to reach the 9th floor, they would still have to navigate to that specific table among dozens to locate it. In the end, it Was hardly noticeable. May benefit from seeing a therapist. I am being plagued by this. I must move forward from this. It seems like I'm wasting my time. It feels like it's happening again. The book was rediscovered by another individual. In my opinion, 3 weeks have passed since then. Researchers that put in a lot of time at the library can use my office. Up here on the 9th story. There are dozens of them, just next to mine. Thanks to this workplace, I've been able to accomplish a lot. The event involving the girl occurred more than a month ago. Up until this point, I had been giving it less and less thought daily. From my office window, I glance up to a table in the library every few seconds as I type. This, perched on this table, a young boy, about 16 or 17 years old, peruses the pages of a book. It is nearly certain to be the same book. I mean, obviously it is. As he knelt down in one of the aisles, I saw him retrieve it. In the event that he, like the female, drops it, I now know what to do. I must seize it. I'm thinking about running out and snatching it from him right this second. However, I am curious to observe whether it induces a trance state in him, similar to the female. He has read it with equal intensity for a longer period of time than the girl. The child let it slip from his grasp. Now he raised his head, mimicking the girl, but this time he was staring directly at me. I could tell because there was no mistaking his gaze. With his intense gaze fixed on me, he leaped from the tabletop as I stood up from my seat. I stepped out into the library after unlocking the door to my office. Unblinking, the child continues to stare. Just as he was about to approach me, he stepped around the table. Tell me about the book. He was the one I questioned. He seemed to be frowning. He started to slowly make his way around me and toward the library's other side. Approaching him, I started to ambulate. Tell me about the book, again, I inquired. He scrunched up and was quite irritated. He began clenching his jaw. Tell me about the book. Can you tell me what the book was about? Excuse me, I inquired. The table where he had placed the book was now in my path. Just as I was about to reach over and take it, he suddenly turned around and bolted. He bolted as if devil itself was chasing him. I observed him closely. He hardly needed 5 seconds to go to the other side of the room, where a huge window awaited. After a frantic sprint, he swung through the window. His fall was caused by the shattered glass. The next step was unclear to me. This had transpired twice previously. I hurried over to the shattered window, sans the book, and peered down. In the parking spot, lying face down, was the youngster, in a terrible way. His legs were contorted. For the time being, I could tell that he was alive. Despite his intense bleeding, he was able to move around. Onlookers hurried over to lend a hand. The book was nowhere to be found when I returned to that table, sitting in a chair. I stared into my office and contemplated until the cops returned to question me. Cops from the past. Like I told you, I also informed them. On this occasion, they did not appear to believe me. Unlike the first collision, this one did not have any eyewitnesses. The library did not have any security cameras. The idea that a child would simply jump out of a window due to this particular book is simply unbelievable to the cops. I did not blame him either. It baffled me for a long time. Indeed, it does. At this very moment, I am on trial at the State House for this child's murder. I'm patiently waiting for the psychologist to arrive so she can assess me. In walked the psychologist, placed his briefcase on the table and sat down. Mr. Baker, good afternoon. Afternoon, sure. My anticipation of speaking with you has been building. He claimed to have researched your situation extensively. If I'm not mistaken, you're saying that the 2 young girls who died not long ago, the one who fell out of the window and the one who was hit by a car, were reading a notepad. Yes, I have explained this ad nauseum throughout my tenure here. He pulled out a notebook and asked, "Can you tell me about it?" As he opened his briefcase, it has a dark blue paper cover and is small and thin. There's text on it. Somebody has written on it. At that very time, after removing a handful of papers, the doctor found the notebook. Yes, the same notebook sitting in his briefcase. His expression was one of pure curiosity as he glanced at me and gave me the affirmative. My wide eyes were fixed on the notebook, and he could see it. So did he? Wow, I don't understand. "Is that so?" he inquired. As I lifted it and opened it, the term fly paper appeared on the front. I started to have trouble breathing. Seated against the wall, staring at that notepad, I moved my chair away from the exam table. 2 individuals had previously been killed by it. The doctor absorbed the book for what seemed like an eternity. He cautiously stood up from his chair and remained silent for a moment, even though he didn't show any emotion. I could see that he was crying. He pivoted back to the room and unlocked its door. An officer was stationed just outside the entrance, keeping watch. After removing the weapon from the officer's holster, the doctor placed it in his mouth and proceeded to pull the trigger. I got a cut. It went unnoticed by me. I merely gazed upon the book that remained resting on the table. I snatched it and bolted. I leaped over the medic's corpse and whirled around the officer. The janitor's closet was open, so I dashed down the hall to get it. I sprinted inside and locked the door behind me and switched on the lamp. Behold, I stood before the book. When I opened it, a police officer swung a nightstick at me from behind, knocking me unconscious. Still drenched in blood, I woke up in a hospital bed, shackled to my bed. Not I, but the doctor that was confirmed by the police had committed suicide. I informed them that I was hiding in my closet to read the book. Their search was thorough. Rumor has it that the closet was searched and found empty. Even though I am in a cell, here I am. Sit down here. Served a 2.5-year sentence for the accidental manslaughter of 3 individuals while taking antipsychotic medication. These days, it's more like an institution than a prison. I am one of many folks who have been treated poorly by the handlers. Here, I assure them day in and day out that I am not insane, every day. They have to remind me to take my medication. The notepad was in my cell. It has eluded me. Not one, but 2 of the worst handlers around have also discovered the notepad. They got it from me. I am no longer bothered by them. The book occupies my thoughts on a daily basis. I feel like it's practically challenging me to read it every time. The temptation is always there. Everything intrigues me. What the book says. I am well aware that I shouldn't read the notebook. Yet nonetheless it constantly makes its way back to me. Yeah, I'm aware of it. Look, I'm not naive. What happens when someone reads the book is something I've witnessed. All right. Still, I'm curious. What does it say? I'm curious. All I want to know is,